Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski, speaking to you live from my home in Susia in the beautiful Hebron Hills in Israel on this wonderful, hot summer day, July 15th. It's my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. It is really the middle, towards the end of the 9 days, coming up to Tisha B'Av. And I say that because here in Israel, if you live in a religious environment, a religious yeshuv like I do, the 9 days are noticed. For instance, I mean, this happens every summer and every religious place. The pool is the center of life here. And for 9 days, the pool is closed. And instead of everyone cooling off at the pool, they're sweating and suffering and doing, activities inside. So that you notice. And the other thing is, you don't hear music. Nobody's playing music. You're not supposed to play music. You're not supposed to do laundry. You're not supposed to take a shower. You're not supposed to eat meat. And there are a few little rules like that. But then on Sunday, there's going to be a big fast. And then Sunday night, it'll be over. And people start traveling and people start playing music and people go crazy and they have weddings and all these things that are banned during the 9 days happen right afterwards. And I heard a shiur, a lesson this morning about this day, Tisha B'Av. Now, I didn't grow up observing it. I had never heard of it. But it is about, and it is remembering the destruction of the temple, okay, the second temple, which the destruction came about because of baseless hatred. And Jews weren't getting along. And when you have a weak people, a lot of evil can seep in there. And for years and years and years, thousands of years, Jews all over the world fasted and cried and sat on the floor on this day, on Tisha B'Av, because they yearned to come back to Israel. How ironic. When today, here I am hosting the show, returning home about Aliyah, trying to convince and encourage all of you who have not come home yet. And all you have to do is buy a ticket, fill out some forms, and come on a plane. You don't have to sit on the floor crying. You don't have to yearn. No more. You can come. Come here and live. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. We have a great show for you today.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. I could go on and on about the Tisha B'Av and coming back to Israel theme, because it's very upsetting to me that we have the situation today that we're doing everything we can and all these groups are forming to bring people here when it should just be very easy. But it isn't easy. It isn't easy for everybody. And I have with us today a real estate agent who deals specifically with North American Olim, and she helps them and she sees the struggles and has tailored her work to these families that really do need help. Her name is Simi Cohen. She has been here for 11 years. She comes from the 5 towns of New York and lives in Modi'in today. Simi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great. I met Simi in one of the Aliyah chats that I'm part of, and there are lots of these all over, and they're great. They is that right? They really give people
I think
support.
They're great. I think they're great. People have amazing questions, but it's just amazing to see the difference between now and let's say before Corona, when it seemed as much as it was difficult, it was less difficult than people find it to be now. You know, there's so many things you have to do, apostille and this and that, and how you're going to get there. The office is closed. It's COVID. You know, it just added to all the chaos.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely added to the chaos, but it's Hashem above directing things here. And it's almost like when somebody wants to become Jewish, a non-Jew, goes to the rabbi and says, I want to be Jewish. And apparently they're supposed to be turned away. They say no 3 times to see if the person really, really wants to be Jewish. And it's almost like God is testing the Jews, you know, like, okay, first we have it hard enough that we're far away and that they're, actually it wasn't hard, but let's just, for argument's sake, say you're far away and maybe it's hard to get a job here and you have to overcome Hebrew. But, let's throw Corona there. And now you have a whole level of bureaucracy that never existed before at all. That's what you're talking about.
I think the hardest part for people is the fact that nobody knows if they're allowed to come in. You know, usually if there wasn't Corona, people come in for fun. You know, they put all their dollars on the side and they say, okay, we'll take a pilot trip. We'll come in. We'll check it out. They can't even get in. So it makes things a little bit more difficult. And before I lived here, everyone's like, oh, it's so hard the first year. When I came here and things were hard, everyone's like, yeah, you know, mekablim et Yisrael beisurim. You know, you get it with the difficulties. And, you know, kind of like the difficulties is what makes it easier later. And the truth of the matter is, it's for me like childbirth. As soon as I was in labor, I was like, I'm never having a kid again. I looked at my husband. I told him I hated him. He did this to me. And then guess what? A year later, I was already pregnant, and I couldn't wait. And the same thing happens again and again. And that's really how it works. You forget completely about the labor. So, you know, it's a matter of how do you see your life? And I love watching my kids be raised here. I love watching them on Yom Ha'atzmaut dancing around with their flags. And, you know, I just feel that this country has a lot more to offer for children and for kids. You know, it's just it's a whole nother life. Instead of working to and living to work, you work to live. There's barbecues, you see your friends. It's a completely different atmosphere, and I don't regret it at all. But yes, the first year was hard. You just need to have a good network, a good system. And like I said to you yesterday, one of the biggest things that people miss out on is the fact that there is such an Anglo network, and Anglos can help each other out. You know, I speak to people all the time. This one's looking in Ra'anana, this one's looking in here and there, or the other place. We always have someone for everyone because we've all been through it. You know, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a mortgage broker, whether it's whatever it is, you can have it all and have it easy and hear it in English instead of feeling like a complete alien and not know, you know, what to do with yourself.
Right. Well, that's why I wanted you to talk to our audience, to give them that reassurance and to tell them maybe some of the pitfalls that you can expect as a newcomer here.
Another thing I could say, which we spoke about also as well, is that some people don't realize what it is and how important it is, especially if you're not a Hebrew speaker. There's even kids who are born into Israeli homes, and they say to themselves, I want to live in an Israeli neighborhood because I want my kids to be Israeli. Well, guess what? They're going to be Israeli. The minute they get their Teudat Zehut, they're Israeli. They go to school. They'll learn Hebrew, even if the whole entire neighborhood is speaking English. You know, the fact of the matter is that it's so hard. Why make it harder? Have a soft landing. Come to a neighborhood where you can go on a Facebook group and everybody already is like, oh, the Friedmans are coming, and they invite them over for Shabbos, and the kids are the same age. And, you know, it's just unbelievable how much everybody here can relate. So what happens is that every single person that lives in the community has family outside of the country, and they do chagim together. They do, you know, parties together, birthdays together. Everything that happens here, we become each other's family. And that's the great thing about picking an Anglo community. Because tomorrow you're sick and your parents are on the other side of the world, but your neighbor will make dinner for you. And that's the joy of finding an Anglo community.
All right, I'm going to argue with you because that happens in any community. I don't live in an Anglo community, and that happens here.
Every Jewish community it happens, but
Right.
you speak Hebrew.
Right.
I'm talking about Anglos who are moving in and they don't speak Hebrew. It's a
Okay.
very hard situation to relate to.
I get it.
You know,
yeah, they're totally outsiders. I do know. I do get it. I feel sorry for them, and they really. You're right. Actually, you're right. I have seen, and I am not one of them, but I do see sometimes. I am the representative here for Nefesh B'Nefesh, and sometimes I get inquiries from these Anglos who ask me these questions that are bizarre to me. They say, "Oh, we're a couple. We're about 50 years old." And do you have shiurim? And, we don't speak any, they don't even need to say that. We don't speak any Hebrew. Do you have this? Do you have that? And I'm like, this is not the place for you.
People don't realize, I have a very good correlation, like something that could really help you and your listeners even relate to the feeling. You know how everyone this year was saying, it was so hard for people because of COVID. People didn't go out. They didn't see each other. And there's a lot of loneliness and depression. That's exactly what happens to somebody who makes Aliyah and moves to a community where nobody knows them, nobody's waiting for them, and they have no idea what to expect.
You're missing.
It's
They don't speak the language.
Correct.
That's what you mean to say. They don't speak the language. So if you move to Efrat, if you move to Malaya Dumim,
I speak the language. I was raised in a house I speak fluent Hebrew, and I moved to Elad. Great community, very frum. I lived in Elad because my sister-in-law lived in Elad, so that's where we landed. And it was really hard because as much as I find myself to be so Israeli, the Israeli temperament is different. The way things are done is different. You don't know how to handle things. But when you have people around you who are like, yeah, I know you had to wait 15 minutes for your bagel. You asked for cream cheese, they put butter. It's just the way it goes.
It's
and you
culture.
have people who can understand you. The culture, the bureaucracy.
No, it's all culture.
All those things.
It's all culture. It's 100% culture because you can't even complain to anybody if you're a foreigner. You can't even cry to anybody. You can't even ask a question. Like, I remember all the ganim, all my kids would have like the meetings for the parents at 7:00 at night. And I was always alone there waiting for them to open because I was the only one who showed up on time.
Well, look at that. I got you to agree with me in the end. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's really that ankle hug is so important.
Sure. And there was no one to complain with. Yeah. And that's just even a small thing. You can imagine when you have to deal with a handyman or you have to deal with taxes or you have a problem,
Not just that. I can give you an example that is so, it happens all the time, which is something that, let's say somebody calls me up and they want to buy a house. Before they buy a house, I explain to them, listen, I just want you to know, we don't have escrow. We don't have this. We don't have that. And that the first down payment you pay is cashed. These are things that obviously can be explained later to whoever is buying or purchasing in the future. But the point is that when you have somebody Anglo, there's no surprises. They cushion the fall. So they could be like, oh, well, did you know that in school you have to go and get, you can go and get the books from the school for 100 shekels instead of spending 1,000 shekels by buying them in the store, which is hashalat svarim, and somebody's like, oh, that's a thing? These are things that they would never know if somebody Anglo didn't explain it to them. So many things. It happened to me as somebody who's a Hebrew speaker, reader. I got the newsletter, but I didn't understand. I didn't pay attention. I skipped it. But meanwhile, I would be like, what do you mean you didn't pay for school books? I paid 1,100 shekels. And they're like, what do you mean? You pay 150 shekels. You rent them for the year.
280. What do you mean this book project? When did that come out? Well, yeah.
What do you mean you need a permission slip for the trip tomorrow? What trip tomorrow? How many liters of water? What kind of hat? All these things. But everyone helps each other out. And it just is so amazing.
Yes. Now, that's right. So the Israelis do that. They help each other out. They form the WhatsApp group. Even if you are not on it and they pass you in the store, they're going to tell you because they know your kid is on that class and then part of the. But if you're not, that is 100%. But those are cultural things. I think we're going to keep you on. We're running to the end of the segment. I'd like to keep you on and maybe get into the nitty gritty about buying a house. You're throwing terms around escrow. Some people, don't even know what that means. Maybe we should just take it from like step one.
Or even it could be done at another time. Even it doesn't matter. all these things can be worked out. Everyone has to speak to someone who knows what they're talking about.
And even, I mean, like you didn't even talk about renting. Like, why rush to buy? Why not rent first? So stay with us. We're down to 15 seconds. Please stay with us, and we'll continue after the messages. Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Simento from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together, we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Simento, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. We're continuing our talk with real estate agent Simi Cohen from Modi'in. We're going to get into something here. I want to know why people...
We had a bit of a machloket.
Yeah. If people should rent before they... Yeah. Like, I think people should just rent for a year when they come to Israel and not get so caught up in the perfect neighborhood, the perfect school, the perfect... shul and the perfect special ed and all that. Just get here already, rent an apartment or rent a house for a year, and then feel your way around. You'll get a lay of the land.
Well, here's my thing. Me as a realtor, I make money either way, so it doesn't matter. But my point is, I look at it in a very different way. If somebody has money to buy, Israel is an amazing investment. No matter where you go, it's a tiny country where the entire world of Jews want to live. For the amount of Jews that there are in the world, there aren't enough houses in the entire Israel to support it, which is why we keep building and building and building. So what happens is supply and demand, and houses go up, prices go up. And if somebody's to come, and I'll give you an example, we'll use Modi'in because that's where I live. If somebody's to come and buy in Modi'in, and now they have a mortgage that's costing them 5,000 shekels a month, the 5,000 shekels a month is going into their mortgage as opposed to them spending 10,000 shekels a month on rent and throwing that money away. Meanwhile, it's going into their investment. And if it doesn't work out in a year, because obviously in a year is enough time to give it a shot. If it doesn't work out in a year, then you sell it a year when you're officially a year and a half later, or you keep it as an investment and rent it out. It all depends on you. I have a client who wasn't really feeling Modi'in because they wanted more of a kibbutzi type of thing, and that's definitely not Modi'in. Modi'in is a city. It's great. It's like suburbs. It's a city suburbs type of place. They wanted something more hip and artsy and kibbutzi. And what did they do? They put the house up for rent, and now they are for 2 years renting out their house here in Modi'in. And if they're happy where they're living, then they continue there. Either they'll sell and buy there, or they'll continue renting there. But meanwhile, their investment is being held up, and prices are still going up, so they didn't even lose a penny. However, if you're to come here and spend every month money on rent, it's kind of difficult, unless you have the money to do it. And there's plenty of people who have the money to do it. It's just a little harder to find a rental.
Interesting. Is there a company like yours to handle finding a rental and dealing with that? Not everybody wants to do that.
All agents work for rentals and on sales. Usually to buy a rental, to get a rental costs a month rent, because most rentals are with agents. Because people nowadays don't want to show their houses. They don't have time to deal with it. So they give it to an agent, and you come to an agent. You pay a month's rent plus VAT. Everything in Israel is plus VAT. That's something that all your listeners have to get used to in advance.
You got to explain that, because you're saying it, and it sounds that they don't even know what you're saying. Value-added tax. That's all she's telling you.
When you're in America and you go to you go shopping in the mall, and now you bought a shirt, you picked up a shirt, a pair of pants, and a pair of shoes, and you know their prices, but you don't know how much it's going to cost you in the end because they add tax. Here, if you go to the store and you buy a shirt, shoes, and a tie, or whatever it is, that's exactly how much it costs. It costs because the tax is included inside. Inside, for whatever it says in the price tag is what you pay. Tax is included. However, when you're buying a house or renting a house or going to the plumber or calling whatever, the pool man, it doesn't matter what it is. Any service,
right,
you have to, they add VAT. So if somebody says to you, this is going to cost you 5,000 shekels, and then all of a sudden they come to you with a bill for 6,500, you're like, wait, oh, you said 5,000. Yeah, plus VAT. So that's something that people have to take into consideration. And again, this goes back to what I said about having Anglo friends and families that can relate and really, take you on board.
Yeah, and tell you, and kind of just coach you, like mentor you a little bit.
Or laugh at you. And be like, I fell there too. Yeah. That happened to me too. Sometimes it's really funny. Sometimes it's really sad. I remember, listen, I speak fluent Hebrew, and I remember just being totally exhausted after a month. I was like coming in, it's a thing that we say about Olim anyway. Everyone's ready for a fight. You come in ready for a fight because everyone told you that Israelis are aggressive, and this one's trying to cut you online, and this one puts their shopping cart in front of you, but they're not anywhere to be found, and you're like, I'm on the line, I've been standing here for 10 minutes, and there's this shopping cart. It doesn't belong to anybody. Now, originally when you're an Ole, you just stand there and stare, and you're like burning up inside. But once you've become like an Ole who's been here for a while, you take that cart, and you like roll it down to the far end of the grocery store, that the person comes back and you're like, what cart? I don't know what you're talking. I didn't see any cart. Yeah. It's just a matter of learning what we call litmoded. What's the word in English?
You're saying to measure. Okay. Look, there are good behaviors to learn, and there are bad behaviors to learn. When you're on the phone here, and the Israelis are still having a conversation when they pick up the phone. They don't even say hello. It's mamash chutzpah, okay? I don't have time to wait for you to finish your conversation. You're supposed to answer the phone and attend to me. What the hell is that? I don't.
Natalie, why don't you tell us how you really feel?
Right. I don't think that's a behavior to learn or to emulate at all. I think the more North American, British, Anglo, Olim who come here and keep their manners and show their manners. Maybe some of that will rub off because manners are nice. They really are.
It's funny that you just said that maybe it'll rub off because I find that in Anglo areas, for example, people demand it. Schools are better. Education is better. The English department is better. And the supermarkets are better. Service is better because people will come in and start yelling and saying, listen, this is not okay. But if you go into an Israeli neighborhood and you're sitting by the kipah, which is the register, if you're standing by the kipah, there's a girl sitting on a chair, chewing her gums super loud, texting her boyfriend, and all you want to do is get out of there, and she's like, la, 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 and then she finally puts her phone down, and then the friend comes over, and you're just like, hello, can you just knock me out? Can you just get this going? But if you're sitting here in Modi'in, Ra'anana, any of the areas that are known to be Anglo areas, those things don't happen because they know that the Anglos are going to come in. I just find that Anglo, I don't know, do you find that, or is it just me? You're not in an Anglo area.
I'm not in an Anglo area. I'm far away from Anglos, and yeah, people, it also depends what kind of person you are. Okay, where I shop, there are Arab clerks, and they're pretty okay. They're pretty okay.
Yeah, that's something that people don't know making Aliyah, that, they're not all, you expect them, you're going to come here expecting them to have fangs. It's not really like that.
No, they're service oriented, and they're actually very polite and helpful. The Israelis have an attitude, and they are unfortunately not helpful and not polite. Yeah, it's hilarious. But
both. But it becomes like comedy. It no longer agitates me.
Correct.
Sometimes
Correct.
I could even laugh at them and be like, I want you to know you were amazing. And she looked at me like, what?
Yeah.
And that's really okay. You just have to take everything with a grain of salt. And that's really what I've learned here.
You have to. You do. People, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to take things too seriously. And if you live that way and are constantly like getting annoyed and like keeping score, I have problems with my own husband. He's going to kill me for saying this, but he has a fight with all these different people, and he knows who does what. And I say to him, just say Boker Tov. You don't have to marry them. You live in this small community. We all know who did what, but just say, good morning and keep walking. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help. The guy doesn't know what he did wrong. We see people. I mean, don't even get me started on like the littering. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I was driving me out of a car today. Someone threw their bag out of the window of their car.
I think we could agree that Israel teaches you to be patient. And I want you to know something. Like you're talking right now, and I'm like, it cracks me up because I already don't see any of these things. I love it here. I love it so much that even when I have to go visit home, my parents have to like pay for me to get on a plane, meaning they have to buy the ticket, and I feel too guilty to ignore it that I go. I love it. Did
I say ever in any of this conversation that I don't love it here? I love it here.
No, of course you do. That's why you're here.
I totally love it here. But I can love and criticize. I criticize my children. I criticize
of course you can,
my mother. I criticize myself. No, it's what you. I mean, it's not. It has nothing to do with being Jewish. I had a Russian ballet teacher. Okay, he was not Jewish. He used a stick on my feet, all of our feet. And he made me cry. He would embarrass me. And my mother could not have been happier. She said, he's paying attention to you. He thinks you're talented. And I'm crying. And he called me names. And he used the stick on my foot. But she just could not get over how much he thought of me because he criticized me. He thought enough of me to criticize me. All right? If you don't care about someone, you're just going to say, great, kol hakavod. But if you care about someone, you're going to.
Why is there the sentence? Haven't the Jews suffered enough?
That's not necessarily
Why?
suffering.
Because Jews are always think they're suffering. I think, and I have to tell you, I'm speaking just for me. I think I have the greatest life. That sometimes my kids, I see that they have this, they have all these cousins in New York, and they got the cool Nike shoes that cost them only $100 or whatever it is. And sometimes my kids really, they look at them and they love it. And they're like, oh, God, when I'm older, don't be mad, Mom, but I'm moving back to America. My kids are now there for a week, and they're coming back. They're ready to come back. They're not coming back now. They're coming at the end of the summer, but they realize the difference between, coming here and Yom HaAtzmaut and what it feels like and being with, your friends and Yom HaZikaron and crying with everybody. Yom HaShoah, you feel it. You feel every Chag. You feel every national holiday, every Jewish holiday.
We're out of time. We're out of time. You're absolutely right, Simi. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to have you back. Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
And me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Hello, I am Walter Bingham. If you want to hear the news behind the news and the true perspective on world affairs, then the Walter Bingham File is the program for you. We bring you interviews with the movers and shakers, political commentaries, and on-the-spot reports of events as they happen. All here every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Israel time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And it's all archived on our website. Make it a date.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. We are going to be speaking with soon-to-be Ole. We're speaking live with Kevin Klagge in Hollywood, Florida. And Kevin is going to be moving here with his family in 2 or 3 weeks. He just got his approval. Mazal tov, Kevin. Kevin's a lawyer. His wife is an artist. Coming with his kids, and they're moving to Ramat Beit Shemesh Aleph. Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Natalie.
Great. Tell me a little bit about your background, because Hollywood, Florida is a pretty Zionist place, and I have never met anyone from there who has moved to Israel. Everyone seems to be pretty happy there with their young Israel and being close to, I guess they go to Boca. You know, Florida is a very hot place to be a modern Orthodox Jew today.
We have a great community here, and we're actually very happy with where we are. As far as Zionism, we didn't really grow up with any Zionistic principles. My wife and I, we both went to public school, and we sort of had to investigate Israel on our own. It wasn't sort of a principle that we had.
How did that happen? I mean, friends you met, did you get involved with a rabbi, your neighbors? If you never grew up with Israel, you know, what happened?
So we do have a number of friends who have moved, and they made the move some years ago, some more recently. So it was more of an idea maybe we'd retire there, but then as you investigate it, you think, well, we're going to be in Israel, and we're settling our kids here, so maybe we have to actually send our kids first, and then we're away from our kids because our kids are settling in Israel, and then we're still stuck here. So we made the choice to sort of take on the obstacles ourselves and settle as a family.
All right. First of all, you made the smart choice. And second of all, I love what you said. I love what you said about being stuck there. That is a perfect way to see it, because that is the reality. The Jews that are in the Galut, outside of Israel, and are still there, are stuck there. Okay, for not that many reasons. Okay, I mean, it's really easy. This happened to us in Mitzrayim. Okay, they're comfortable. They have, gotten used to things, and they feel safe, and they are used to being a minority. I mean, there's no other way. That's it. That's really it. They're comfortable, right? But you are also comfortable. You're comfortable too. You said so.
Well, there's two aspects. One is we're comfortable in our bubble, so we have great community, great schools and shuls. But for myself, with my professional life, I did start to feel the negative impact of being more of a minority. So, for example, when I was in law school, I had my first jury trial, and half of the jury selection time was focused on that I was wearing a kipah, and that one of the jurors worked at a Jewish school. So there became this whole focus on me being Jewish and having this trial. So professionally, I call it the gullet glass ceiling. As an observant Jew, if you want to live with integrity and that your inside is the same as your outside, you're going to have difficulties professionally. I know many judges, politicians, and it has to be something a little more hidden. And we found in Israel that through our research, people can live with a lot more integrity. I mean, we have Bennett as the prime minister, and he's outwardly observant. And that's something we wanted for our kids, to be part of a majority, that they can actualize their potential.
Wow. You said that so well. I'm so glad this is recorded. You said that so well. Every word is 100% true. And it's living with integrity. Everything you said. Now, why did it take, why is it? Go ahead.
In America, we had pretty much made it. We had our house. I had a big job at a big national firm. My wife was working as an art teacher. It was her dream job. And we had a little bit of a midlife crisis, an early midlife crisis, meaning we struggled. We made it, at least materially. And what was next? So for me professionally, I was struggling with going out to all these lunches and dinners and just having, tomatoes and cucumbers on my plate. It was a little hard to, keep my observance and maintain my observance and continue to grow professionally. So it was at that point where I started investigating where would be my next professional step. And I found a law firm in Israel that mostly observant Jews, and they were doing global law, so U.S., UK law. And I thought, well, if I wanted to work here, would I even, or if I had a job offer, would I even be able to take the job offer? I'm not ready to go to Israel. I don't have the paperwork done. We're not working on our Hebrew. So then that was sort of when I made the decision that we at least have to have our act in order, have the paperwork ready, have the, work on our Hebrew more. So if I have, let's say, my dream job opportunity in Israel, I could take it. And then that's when we really started investigating and really doing some soul searching. And what we found with Israel is we really liked the priorities of Israelis. So in America, number one is material growth. And number two is convenience as far as the value system. Now, those are important, but they're really not our number one and number two. Our number one is our spiritual growth as a family. And number two is just family structure and community. So for our long-term growth, we found that Israel is the place to be.
That's great. It is the place to be. You are making a great move. What was this crisis, though? I mean, it doesn't sound like much of a crisis. Your crisis was the job. Is that like what pushed you guys over the edge?
Well, it wasn't coming from a place of crisis. It was coming from a place of just practically, what's our next step? How are we going to grow? And we just didn't see ourselves growing as much here in America. We were very comfortable, very comfortable. And we wanted to grow a bit more and take on a challenge and look toward the long-term future of our kids. My oldest is 12 years old, so we also thought this was somewhat of our last opportunity before the kids were getting too old to be able to do it.
Well, everybody listening today, listening to Kevin, please take note. Do it. And look at that age there. The child is 12. There are some people who think that's too old. I disagree. I don't think there's any age that's too old. I think your attitude, the parents' attitude, is everything. Now, I don't ask you how your Hebrew is. It's kind of irrelevant. When you're moving to an Anglo community like Beit Shemesh, the people there speak English. They'll understand English. Your children will learn Hebrew in school. They'll speak English with you at home. And you guys will grow here. You will grow here. It's a great story. It's a great story, and I'm so glad I had you on, because what you did was you looked around you and you actually realized, without anything bad happening, you realized we can do better in Israel. We can, like you said, live with integrity in Israel, and you didn't take anything bad for that to happen. There's a lot of anti-Semitism going around the world now, and people get, they start to say, oh, you shouldn't come to Israel out of fear. And I disagree with that. I say you come to Israel, doesn't matter why. But how nice if it isn't out of fear? How nice if it is a choice like yours? And anyone out there listening who has a similar story, you can't grow the way you want to grow in America as a full Jew. You just can't. It's not the Jewish country. You'll always be worried about a kippah on your head. You're not only will you worry, you're going to worry for your children when they go to college with the kippah on their head. I mean, who wants to live like that? It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous way to live. There is Israel today. You don't need to live like that anymore.
Yes, we didn't, in Florida where we are, it's a little bit better as far as anti-Semitism goes, so we didn't really feel that negative pressure, but it's certainly around. We definitely see it. Another aspect.
You're in a bubble. You're living in a bubble.
We're in a bubble, exactly. We are in a bubble. It's an awesome bubble, but it's also long term. We didn't know how we're comfortable now, but also in the future, when we're talking about our kids going to college, all the debt we were going to be taking on with that, the continued health healthcare costs, the private school tuition. My wife and I both wanted to be a little bit more entrepreneurial, me with bringing in more of my own law clients, and my wife, she's opening an online art website, and we just crunching the numbers. If we could erase the private school tuition and healthcare, we had a much greater ability to start our own businesses. Whereas in America, just our family overhead is so high, it's hard to be able to cut the cord with an employer.
Yep, that is so true. And once you live here, you're going to feel so free, and in so many ways that way. But you'll start to realize there are just things about your life that you can take off your shoulders. The safety, all this. It's going to be great. You're making a great decision. I'm very happy for you. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck. Best of luck with your Aliyah.
Thank you, Natalie. Great talking with you. And I just want to say hi to my wife, Leah, who's also listening live somewhere. She's a big fan.
Oh, great. Oh, Leah, great. Thank you for setting this up. It was all because of you, Leah.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at israelnewstalkradio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling from the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.